Dunedin High School students say they're flying the American flag out of protest.
Today we set up this as to try and stand up for ourselves as we can fly our flags.
Students say they were told they had to take the flag down during school hours.
People in my family have fought for this country, and for me to have a right taken away from me, it's kind of just like upsetting.
School principal Kyle Johnson says he never told students they couldn't fly the flag. He says the school's policy states any loose items on cars or truck beds are safety hazards. Anything on a vehicle must be secured.
I understand how it is a safety matter. However, the announcement was because it was going to cause a conflict.
But we never confiscated any flags. But what we did do is, like, the flags were stuck in the back of pickup trucks and they were loose. And we wanted to make sure no loose items at all that can be picked up, swung around, possibly hit somebody by accident.
Principal Johnson says he'll let democracy decide and give the students a chance to write a new policy.
In our proposal, we just talked about how the recognized national flags are allowed in school truck beds as long as they're secured properly, so that way it's not a safety hazard or anything like that.
And the principal tells me that he's actually proud of his students for taking a stand, especially since this is an election year and all we've been talking about is voting. Now, the student government, they will write this proposal. It will go before a student council to be voted on next week, and then after that, it will go to school officials.
The chant at ground zero in the days after the September 11th terror attacks is something many of us will always remember. A moment of pride in this country during undoubtedly one of the darkest days there. But some have started using this chant, they say, in a different way, taking USA and substituting a vulgar message aimed at their opponent. Now, as a result of this, the OK Conference has established a new rule limiting when fans can chant USA at high school games and is now enforcing other rules as well.
Well, we shall see what the reaction will be. The OK Conference restrictions on the USA chant follows what many thought were inappropriate chants, banners, and behavior by some Forest Hill Central students at their game against Ottawa Hills Grand Rapids last week at Houseman Field. Now, Forest Hill Central is the home team here tonight, their first game since complaints about the actions of some of their fans last week, and the first since the restrictions on the USA chant were enacted by members of the OK Conference. The use of this chant as a put-down or vulgar insult wasn't the main issue at last week's game, but one the conference thought they should address.
All we know is that chants were there, okay, and so we thought we would address it with everybody. The letters USA have been changed to mean something else instead of positive, patriotic type of things. So what the ADs and principal presidents suggested and decided on is that we would allow the USA cheers or chants during the national anthem, after the national anthem, but during the game it shouldn't be there because it can be denoted as a put-down, derogatory, and so on.
To Asia, where scuffles have broken out between police and anti-US protesters outside the American embassy in the Filipino capital, Manila. The demonstrators came out in support of the latest comments made by the Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte. He called for the removal of American troops from the south of the country, adding that their presence creates tensions among the majority Muslim population of that area. Duterte also said he won't allow government forces to conduct joint patrols of disputed waters near the South China Sea, apparently scrapping a deal his predecessor reached with the American military earlier this year.
Is an alleged video of the incident that surfaced online. Rebels, reportedly belonging to a group backed by the U.S., are heard chanting anti-American slogans. The U.S. forces reportedly crossed the Turkish border into Syria as part of an operation to coordinate airstrikes against ISIS. However, it seems they decided to return back to Turkey after Syrian rebels furiously protested against their presence in the area. The rebels were chanting anti-American slogans as well as threatening the troops with violence. Earlier, Washington confirmed it was assisting Turkey in its anti-ISIS operations in the area. The Pentagon has yet to comment on the latest reports.
It's likely to be very embarrassing for the United States. Free Syrian army fighters, the so-called moderate rebels that the Americans and the Turks have been insisting for years now are the acceptable opposition in Syria, openly calling for the slaughter of American forces and calling their presence in Syria an invasion of Syrian land. As I said, very embarrassing for the Americans and really highlighting the problems of the Americans openly intervening in a country like Syria, in the Middle East rather, where their past interventions really bring up many bad memories for people in the region.
Fierce clashes between regime troops and rebel fighters have erupted to the east of the capital Damascus. The US and Syrian ally Russia negotiated a cessation of hostilities that began on Monday evening. The ceasefire deal was clinched in a bid to allow humanitarian aid deliveries to besieged areas where hundreds of thousands of desperate civilians remain trapped.
These fierce shelling began just a few hours ago to the east of Damascus in the town of Jobar. Now already, as is so common in this war in Syria, both the Syrian government and the opposition are trading blames for who is actually responsible for sparking this latest wave of violence, which could put the whole ceasefire deal, which had until now been holding quite well, in jeopardy.
If Washington doesn't do more to influence the moderate opposition fighters in Syria it supports, Moscow has warned it could resume its airstrikes against them. Right now, US-backed rebels are mingled with Sunni Muslim radicals like Al-Nusra Front, which has ties to Al-Qaeda. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has urged Washington to keep its promise to separate them. Sergei Lavrov had a telephone conversation with his US counterpart, the Secretary of State John Kerry, and Lavrov reiterated the need to publish the entire package of the Syria ceasefire agreement.
The UN Security Council has cancelled a meeting on the Syrian ceasefire due to disagreements between the United States and Russia. Envoys were scheduled to present details of the joint agreement, which called for a ceasefire, the delivery of aid and joint targeting of Islamist rebels in Syria. However, the US has been reluctant to release details of the agreement, citing security concerns for some US-backed groups fighting in the country. Russia on Friday said a UN Security Council endorsement of a Syrian ceasefire deal between Moscow and Washington appeared unlikely because of the US refusal to share details with the 15-member body.
There are now more than 1 million refugees who have fled South Sudan, and the United Nations says that number will continue to rise. Those refugees have been uprooted due to violence stemming from the country's civil war that started in 2013. Attempts to create peace have failed, and renewed violence is driving more people out, the majority of whom are under 18. So how does that over 1 million mark stack up against other conflict areas? The countries that have produced the most refugees are Syria, Afghanistan, and Somalia. At the end of 2015, South Sudan came in fourth among refugee source countries, but now joins that small list of countries that have produced more than 1 million refugees. It's closing the gap between Somalia, which produced 1.1 million refugees. 2.7 million refugees originated from Afghanistan and 4.9 million from Syria.
Police in Paris have evacuated a camp holding around 1,500 migrants who have been living on the streets of the French capital for weeks. The operation was launched on Friday morning just west of Montmartre. Most were transported to temporary shelters where they're expected to receive food and medical treatment. Most of the migrants relocated were from Afghanistan, Eritrea and Sudan, and it's thought many were headed to Calais. According to the mayor of Paris, several dozen migrants arrive on the streets of the city each day.
They work together. They live together. They fight together. In the name of gender equality, Norway is introducing compulsory military service for women. Jean is one of the new recruits.
I've noticed that some boys aren't used to living and working with girls, but I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Jean is one of 30,000 young women now eligible to join the military ranks. But with a number of new conscripts needed by the army being under 10,000 men and women, This number will be whittled down to include only the best of the best. The measure was voted through Parliament in 2013, but is only now coming into force, making Norway the first NATO country and the first in Europe to have gender-neutral conscription.
I think it's fine. It should be equal for everyone. We're an equal nation, so why shouldn't women have their share of the fun?
Even the dormitories are mixed. Experts believe cohabitation improves camaraderie within a unit and can in fact combat sexual harassment. Norway has long been a leader when it comes to gender equality. 4 of the last 5 defence ministers have been women. With this latest move, they're aiming to oust gender stereotypes once and for all.
Violence has flared up in the occupied West Bank. Israeli forces say they shot dead a Palestinian after he wounded a soldier. In a separate incident, a car carrying 2 people rammed into a bus stop, injuring 3 civilians near Hebron. Police say one of the assailants has been killed, the other wounded. In East Jerusalem, Israeli forces have shot a knife-wielding attacker. He was killed at the heavily patrolled Damascus Gate before they opened fire. The man, believed to live in Jordan, had another knife about his person.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been criticized for equating the eviction of illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank to ethnic cleansing. Netanyahu posted a video on Facebook last Friday accusing Palestinians of wanting to ethnically cleanse Jews from the area. But his remarks have been met with criticism, with the latest condemnation coming from UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon.
I am disturbed by a recent statement by Israel's Prime Minister portraying those who oppose a settlement expansion as supporters of ethnic cleansing. This is unacceptable and outrageous. Let me be absolutely clear. Settlements are illegal under international law. The occupation, stifling, and oppressive must end.
The University of California at Berkeley has suspended a course amid accusations it shared an anti-Semitic viewpoint and was designed to indoctrinate students against Israel. The San Francisco Chronicle reports Berkeley suspended Palestine, a settler colonial analysis, on Tuesday. The newspaper reports a syllabus for the one-credit course taught by an undergraduate student says it examines the history of the Palestinian territories through the lens of settler colonialism. The suspension came on the same day that 43 Jewish civil rights and education advocacy groups sent a letter raising concerns about the course. The letter says the class encourages students to accept the idea that Israel is an illegitimate settler colonial state and that course readings have a blatantly anti-Israel bias.
After 5 years of crushing drought, water is one of the most contentious issues facing California. And now a plan to divert millions of gallons of water away from cities and agriculture is promising to make the state's water wars even more explosive. According to BuzzFeed, the battle surrounds fresh water flowing down the San Joaquin River, a major waterway that runs through California's Central Valley. On Thursday, the State Water Resources Control Board rolled out a plan that would mandate 40% of the water in the river flow to the ocean, doubling the current rate. The reasoning is that by allowing more water to flow out, threatened fish populations will be bolstered. The proposal isn't finalized yet, but it's sparking outrage in the Central Valley. Merced County Supervisor Deidre Kelsey said, "It's just so preposterous. It can't work unless everybody picks and moves out of the valley." The anger is widespread, and local officials throughout the region have condemned the proposal. California Assemblyman Adam Gray described it as an economic death sentence, and Jake Wenger of the Modesto Irrigation District told KQED the move amounts to an all-out assault on the community.
Before picture here. Here's the before shot right here at the Mosaic Phosphate Mine in Mulberry, and that pond right there, that's where the sinkhole is tonight. Now let me show you something else. This is video that we got today USA from Action Air 1. The view from above over the scene. You see how deep that thing is? Goes straight down to the aquifer. Action Air 1 showing how this pond is now gone, and it sucked down all that radioactive water right into the water supply. You're looking at an open wound into the water supply. 215 million gallons of radioactive H2O pouring straight into the Floridan aquifer. Water James Branch drinks.
Everything out here is on wells. And someone should have known or let us know that.
Dr. Van Binion believes the contamination will be confined to the immediate area near the Mosaic plant in Mulberry, giving folks like James Branch reason to ask questions.
I noticed a guard shack going up, and I noticed they blocked off the dirt road, and I was thinking to myself, what's going on?
States of emergency have been declared in Alabama and Georgia after a major gasoline pipeline broke in Alabama. The main concern, fuel shortages along the pipeline route. The state of emergency allows Georgia and Alabama more fuel than normal to be brought in by truck. It also extends the number of hours that fuel trucks are allowed to operate. Now, the sudden fuel shortage could actually increase retail prices up the East Coast. That's why everybody's freaking out. The spills actually disrupted the flow of gasoline from refineries in Houston all the way up to New York, and it could take another week for the pipeline to be repaired. Fuel shortages at service stations have already been noticed in Atlanta. The line's operator, Colonial Pipeline, says it also expects shortages in Tennessee as well as across North and South Carolina. A parallel pipeline is now moving supplies from Texas as far as western Alabama. An estimated 250,000 gallons of gasoline spilled a week ago out of the pipeline in Shelby County, Alabama, south of Birmingham. The pipeline company says the spill has been contained and in retention ponds there.
Authorities and residents of Fujian province in southeastern China are dealing with the aftermath of Typhoon Meranti. The storm crashed into the area with strong winds and lashing rain, leaving a trail of devastation, destroying crops and homes and leaving at least 10 people dead. Power lines are down and around 1.65 million homes are without electricity. The typhoon hit the southern part of Taiwan on Wednesday and was classified a Category 5 typhoon by the Tropical Storm Risk Storm Tracker, the strongest classification available.
But it is a blue. It's like a blue rainbow. Blue rainbow.